Have we met before? Yeah. Yeah.
I was best man at your wedding, mate.
We had lunch about 3 months ago. What?
Hello and welcome. Hope you're all well and looking gorgeous. It's a fabulous day out there today. We're recording on Tuesday, March the 3rd, which is a very, very special day, as it's my birthday. And so I'm going to say officially, thank you, Christopher, for sending me a wonderful book for my birthday. I look forward to reading that one. So yeah, I'm Ross Brown.
And I'm Chris Marsh.
So I've worked in marketing for about 30 years. And what about you, Christoph?
25, 26 years in business development.
Just thinking how much you're more than 5 years younger than me, so you must have started really young, because I was practically, a baby in a cradle when I started.
Oh, well, I felt like I was. I was 20 and I started at an internet service provider on Portland Street in the city centre of Manchester. So, yeah, and it's all I've ever done since, and yeah, I love it.
Well, that worries me then, because
just doing quick maths.
I've done more than 30 years then. I'm even older.
You must have done. You must have done.
Yeah, all right, thanks. Yeah, thanks. I'm only 42, Christopher, as well, you know. Each week, we're going to talk about marketing new business. And we're going to interview a guest, talk about their career trajectory. I'm going to have to stop saying that word because I always stumble over it. Yeah, it's not apparently, no. What mistakes they've made, where they've learned, what they would do different, etc., etc. But we're just going to kick off with, our tip of the week. So, Chris, you first. I'm going to put you on the spot, mate. What's your
Thank you.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Well, of course I have. I'm going to carry on with the momentum of the previous couple of episodes. We've talked about.
You mean you're using the same tip but just in different words?
No, absolutely. That would be a very lazy way of.
It would. You're right.
Certainly not. Certainly not. So I've talked about going to network events and the amount of people you speak to and what you get out of it, and then after that, perhaps how you do the follow-ups. Now, one of us is based over from on the Yorkshire side of the world, and I'm over on the Manchester side of the world, and we often refer to if we abbreviate the word Manchester, you'll get MCR, which I did a post recently that I was talking about MCR and the sort of business development method within MCR. So using the three letters MCR, what could MCR stand for? M, momentum. So having small, consistent actions rather than just one big push and expecting the phone to ring and people to reply to your emails. C is conversation. Make sure you're having quality conversations, not just reading from a script or just saying the same thing over and over, and telling a story. There's a little hint onto who our guest is about to be.
You're getting good at this. You know that you're getting really good at this.
It's good practice. And R being relationships, my favourite part of business development. Building relationships, quality relationships, building trust, having someone be in a position where they can genuinely trust you. So that would be my tip, using MCR. How about you? Do you have a tip this week, Ross?
Well, I do, thankfully, but I haven't written mine down quite as wonderfully as you obviously did. Yeah, I was just thinking about this earlier because no, I need to think of something else. I can't do what Chris does and use the same one every week, just different. It's a bit controversial to some degree.
Okay.
If you're doing marketing, whether it's advertising, PR, whatever, I'm not saying be controversial as in try and get your adverts banned, but get people to think. So maybe go against the status quo, because everyone's going to see hundreds of adverts, hundreds of marketing messages from companies competing against you, whatever industry you're in. So you've got to stand out from the crowd. So come up with something that's going to disagree with conventional wisdom. Have an opinion. Yes, you might turn some people off. So, don't go too far. But at least say something that makes you remembered. Because otherwise you're just wasting money. If you're going to disappear into almost, a bucket of opinions that are all pretty much the same, what differentiates you? Your products probably are as good as somebody else's. They may be a little bit better, but as a rule, good companies in an industry all their products are decent products. So you need to stand out that little bit more, and that's why you do marketing. So make sure you're actually spending the money wisely by saying something rather than just, coming out with a party line that people have said for 50 years. Be yeah, controversial. I mean,
Controversial.
people
Yeah.
worry when you say that you're going to start turning into something militaristic or, putting naked women in your adverts for widgets, but just something that just gets people to remember you.
Great. Yeah, love that. It's a question I'm often asked, and it's something that I ponder sometimes. How do I differentiate from my competitors, or how do my clients differentiate from theirs? What have you got to do differently? Because we're all saying the same thing. So yeah, great tip. Brilliant, Ross.
I try my best, Chris. It's almost like it's what I do for a living. So, shall we, unless you've got anything else to chat about, or shall we bring in our guest for this week?
No, I think it's very relevant in terms of who our guest is this week. I'm really looking forward to hearing from him, and as I say, relevant to a couple of things that we've just talked about with our tips of the
It's
week.
almost like we planned this without thinking about it. We're starting to look professional now, Chris. You do realise that?
Oh,
we're actually sounding better because we've worked out how to use your microphone. So you do look like John Motson doing the football scores. It's got to be said.
That's always been my well. If I can't be a footballer, I'll be a football commentator.
Well, exactly.
That's
I do think that these sheepskin jackets helping the look as well. Anyway, without further ado, our guest for today. So, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Well, Ross, Chris, thank you very much for having me. It's my name's Andrew Thorp. I have been cursed for 63 years now with Thorp without an E. So if anybody's interested in looking me up, please do not put an E on Thorp. There we go. But I'm one of those people who, shall we say, reinvented himself in midlife. So I've had two careers, lengthy careers, the first one being in the golf industry. I spent 22 years in the golf industry and then changed direction when I was in my probably early to mid 40s to become a professional speaker and latterly focused more on helping people to tell their story better. So I'm what I sort of consider myself to be a storytelling coach, which sounds like a made up job, and it probably is because I didn't really want a proper one, so I invented one. But somebody said recently on LinkedIn that there are 2 million people on LinkedIn who are calling themselves a storytelling expert or influencer or whatever. So we're all at it these days. But I think there is room to differentiate. And if I could just pick up on something that I can't remember who said this about, I think it was you, Ross, about standing out. And one of the books that I read in the early part of my reinvention was The Purple Cow by Seth Godin.
Oh, yes, great book.
Marketing guru, a great source of inspiration for me. And he talked about the importance of being remarkable and literally meaning worth remarking on. So like you were saying, Ross, if you say things that are a little bit cliched or generic, then they're not really worth talking about or even noticing. So you have to say the things that you want to say in a way that's more arresting, that will get people's attention, that will get them sitting forward and listening.
It'd be interesting. Otherwise, why would people bother listening to you?
Yeah, and I think the tendency is very much in risk-averse industries, because I work a lot with professional services firms. There is a tendency to lapse into a generic language which is safe, which is deemed as professional, but it's forgettable. And people need to sort of find that line between being still professional, but also humanizing what they say, so it comes across as much more accessible to people.
So let's just wind back. So you mentioned the golf industry. Now, I mean, what did you do in the industry, and how did you get there? Was it something? Were you a mad golfer when you were a young lad, and wanted to make it a career, or?
Well, I started when I was 10 because my brother, who's 10 years older than me, is a golf pro. He always has been a golf pro from the age of 16. And I grew up in Lytham St Anne's, just next to Blackpool in the northwest of England, which is a huge golfing area. So it was inevitable that I would learn to play. And I got to a very good level as a young amateur, but I didn't get good enough to turn pro like he did. And I was more academically inclined than he was. So I went to Manchester University. I did a social science degree, but I kept the golf going. I captained the golf team there, and I played for England and Britain at university level. So, armed with my social science degree, I just reverted to type and went into an industry that was familiar to me, which was golf, but not as a player, but as a referee initially. I worked for the Professional Golfers Association as a tournament director and a referee. And I was a journalist for a few years in the golf industry. I used to run commercial golf and leisure clubs. And I taught golf for a while because I did qualify later in my life to teach people, but beginners.
Yeah.
And I taught mostly business people that didn't play, but felt they were missing out by not playing. So if you were any good, I wasn't really interested in you. I wanted to help people who, didn't really know too much about it, but fancied having a go. And that in
Chris has
itself.
put his hand up. I'm the same. I mean, it's been said to me, do you want to come to a golf day? No. Why not? I don't play golf, and it seems a bit dull to me. But I know friends who play golf who just swear by it. They've all every bloke of my age who plays golf seems to have a secret credit card that the wife doesn't know about it, that they put new drivers on.
So most of my clients, Ross, in this period when I was teaching beginners were women. So there weren't that many guys. It was mostly females who felt, I guess, they were missing out by not sort of going into that area
of activity.
But the fact, not golf clubs. No,
they're into the boys' club.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
They're almost being excluded from the boys' club because the blokes are all playing golf.
Yeah, but I guess we went to driving ranges. We went to sort of little par 3 academy courses. And if you learn something together when none of you are particularly expert, then it's a real bonding experience. So it was a very successful way of them, I guess, networking and getting to know each other better. And it was a way for me to sort of wheedle my way into those companies because I had half an eye on their golf swing and half an eye on, doing something else with them, which was in their business.
So what skills do you think you carried over from that into what you do now, the consultancy part of your life, I suppose?
Well, it was very, very simple answer to that, Ross, and that is public speaking. Because in the golf industry, if you like public speaking, there's oodles of opportunity to do it because nobody else wants to do it. So if you like doing it, there's lots of prize givings and someone has to MC the prize giving. Someone has to, train the staff in the golf clubs and the leisure clubs that I used to run. So that was the crossover. But the reason I shifted, which I haven't sort of alluded to yet, was from one industry to the other, was because of a very difficult time in my life, which was the collapse of a business partnership, being worse than broke for a while, I got divorced, I had no stable place to live for a while, and my mother nearly passed away, all at the same time. This was around 2008-9, which was the time of the global financial crash, of course. So I sort of had a crash of my own, which had nothing to do with the global economy. It was purely coincidental timing. But it led me to want to move away from what I associated with pain, which was the golf industry, towards something that I've always wanted to do, but never really, took that step. So it opened a door in a way to go down the field of, public speaking and helping people to communicate better.
Yeah, I think that's where we met, wasn't it, Andrew? You were putting together some events, Mojo Your Business, all around sort of storytelling, and I saw it as a sort of networking event, however, with an opportunity to put my voice to the audience as well. So I always enjoyed those events in the sort of mid-2000s.
Yeah, the early incarnation, Chris, was a thing called Speakeasy, which was to help people to communicate more easily. I guess the clue was in the name. And people were able to test drive a little 5-minute presentation on an audience and then get some feedback in a safe setting. And there have been a few incarnations since, the most recent being the Multi-Story Club, which I run in Manchester on a monthly basis, which is a way of helping people develop their verbal storytelling skills and develop different ways of saying the same thing. Because if you get rooted in saying the same thing over and over again, you get bored with it. People who've heard it before get bored with it. It doesn't stand out. And you need more flexibility.
What do you think are the biggest issues people face with regards to public speaking? I've always been comfortable with it. I joke, there's a networking event I've been involved in, and the three of us, it was like, well, who's going to MC it? And I'm a semi-professional gobshite, I'll be. So I've never been too worried about that. But so that's why I sometimes have an issue. But why do people have a problem with public speaking? But it does seem to be the thing that people fear the most. I mean, often tops various polls and things. So what do you think are the reasons why, or what are you told?
Well, I also think it's getting worse, that fear, amongst the younger generations, because of a lack of practice and a tendency to communicate digitally. I mean, that's another issue. We can probably leave that for another day. But I mean, generally speaking, public speaking, the glossophobia is the fear of public speaking. Glossophobia.
Every day is a school day.
That's not the fear of living in Glossop. It's
or paint.
But it's, I think, some people, when they suddenly become aware that all the eyeballs are on them, they panic and they start to sort of forget what they were there to say, and they're very self-conscious that, maybe they're not looking the way they want to or whatever. But I think I'll tell you one thing that really inspired me. There's a lady called Catherine Sandland, who's a really good public speaking coach. I guess you could say she's a bit of a competitor, but I don't see it that way. I think she's really, really good at what she does. And she and I gave a TED talk on the same stage in 2016. And she talked about the fact that she used to have a great fear of public speaking. And she began to gradually overcome it. And the tipping point for her was where she realized that the desire to share something that she felt was important overwhelmed the fear she had of speaking in public.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really wise. And I thought that it sort of struck me that you need to start to internalize what you want to say to people, so it really matters to you. And then it tends to come through in your voice and your body language, because it's coming from the heart. It's coming from inside. You're not just saying words that you think you ought to say because the boss has asked you to give his or her presentation because they haven't got time to do it. Yeah. It's much more authentic that way when it's coming from the heart.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, this does remind me of a chapter of a book called Atomic Habits, which Ross is going to read soon. But I often tell people, when I'm talking about business development, I say, "Oh, well, I love it. I love doing it." But in truth, I think people sort of engage with me because they don't love it, and when I say I do love it, they sort of see me as a sort of easy way of sort of ticking that box. However, in the book Atomic Habits, it's more talking about my tolerance level of it is higher, or perhaps I'm able to tolerate the no's and the people ignoring me and people telling me to go away and I'm not interested, Chris, rather than somebody else. So I'm able to sort of react to it in a slightly different way, which gives the impression that I get more enjoyment from it. So therefore, I'm able to do it more often. So that just reminds me of something that you just said.
And Dan Pink, who wrote another famous book now, lovely book called "To Sell Is Human," talks about the ABC of selling. A is attunement, so you've got to get on the right wavelength with people. B is buoyancy, which is basically what you were saying there. You need a degree of resilience and tolerance for rejection. Yeah. And then C is clarity, to make sure that your message is crystal clear and cuts through the noise.
Well, I need to write these down. And you and I, Andrew, we're big fans of the TLAs, aren't we? The 3-letter acronyms. I talk about MCR. You've just mentioned ABC, but there's a couple of other TLAs that you've been involved with.
TLA in itself is a 3-letter acronym.
Indeed.
I love that.
I wasn't lost on you, Ross. Well done.
I'm not just a pretty face, Chris.
Yeah. Andrew, you've been involved in a couple of other things that I'm involved in as well with Join the Dots. We refer to JTD, which I'll give you an opportunity to mention as well. But obviously the human element, the equation that you've put together with Lee Alley. It's obviously a fascinating backstory as to how you come up with this equation. So if I'm not jumping too far ahead in terms of your journey, if that's relevant.
Well, the human equation is something that Lee and myself thought about and came up with probably a year and a half ago now, and it's about the fact that I think we live in a world now that's hyper connected, and what we're doing now online through Zoom allows us to do this, which is fabulous. but there's also a deficit of connection because there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of poor quality connection, where people think that they've got lots of followers and connections and so forth, but they're actually lonely and they're very isolated. So I think in many ways, this desire to accumulate numbers tricks us into thinking that we have this wonderful connection, and yet we don't. So it was very much about helping people recalibrate their understanding of what connection means and to go for quality rather than speed and ease and quantity. So when you meet, I mean, Lee does a lot of stuff around exhibition consultancy, helping exhibitors who spend a lot of money exhibiting get a better return on their investment. And he said that what would often happen is he would walk by a stand at an exhibition. The person on the stand who's become a bit bored and is looking at the phone all day notices that Lee has a name tag with like a QR code or something. And they say, well, can I scan your code, please? And they scan their code and they think their job has been done. So there isn't really any attempt to build rapport and connection and understanding with Lee and asking questions that allows that connection to happen, because the technology takes away the embarrassment and the awkwardness of speaking to a stranger and developing that relationship. Because it is a skill, but it's a skill that comes from practice. So if you use technology to avoid the development of that skill because it seems to be more efficient, that's where that skill is lost.
It's interesting. I mean, I received this morning through LinkedIn a connection request. Never heard of him. No connection to him whatsoever. The connections we do have in common are quite vague connections for me. The people I've met once or twice, perhaps. But he's a young lad who's very junior at a company. And he's got next to no connections. But he's based in the same town as me. So is he just looking for people in town to add? Now, he might be a lovely guy. He might be very interesting, but he's 23. There's no real reason I want to connect with him on LinkedIn. I will have nothing in common with him. I'm not being so mercenary to say, well, he's never going to buy anything from me. But, he's the same age as my daughter. What's the point? And I think there's too many people playing a numbers game. I mean, the way you're talking about the QR codes, it's like, well, how many people do you speak to? Well, we scanned 2,500 badges. Oh, fabulous. Any orders? We scanned 2,500 badges because it doesn't compute. Sorry, it doesn't convert. Just because you've scanned the badges, these people know nothing about you. Probably.
But again, this is where I think we get into a trap with technology where we begin to serve it rather than the other way around. And I'll give you another example that I came across recently. There was a lady giving a speech at a conference, and she started with a wonderful story, a very powerful story, which was that she was on a London bus recently, and she noticed two people on the seat in front of her, a man and a woman, probably in their mid to late 20s. Both looking at their phones, not talking to each other. And she happened to glance over and notice that they were both looking at a dating app. Now, these were two young people who were attractive people, nicely dressed. They weren't actually together as a couple, and she knew that because they didn't speak to each other and they went off in separate directions when they got off the bus. It struck her the irony is that they might have been sitting next to their future partner. But preferred to go online to find their partner rather than talking to the person next to them.
Yeah, the fear of having that rejection if someone sat next to you on the bus. That's yeah.
Well, you've got to stay for another stop or two while they're sat there staring at them.
But that technique, though, is such a powerful way of introducing a presentation. You start with an anecdote or a grabber of some kind that then leads into the point that you want to make. And I think a lot of people in business tend to make the point without thinking about how can I introduce it in an impactful way that maybe temporarily holds back the point and then reveals it. So when you hold it back and then reveal, that's got more impact than if you just lay it all out in advance.
Well, I started out as a journalist. So when you write for mainly newspaper style, but to some degree magazines, it's almost you tell the entire story in the first paragraph and then give the backstory to it. So it's a similar kind of thing in that here, if you only read the first paragraph, you've got 80% of what it's all about. And then we'll put some colour onto it and a few more facts and figures. So it's It's almost tell them what tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them.
Yeah.
And it's just to keep people interested. There's too many presentations where let's start at the beginning. Well, the beginning might not be very interesting. Start with the headline and then give us the backstory.
Well, I think the difference there, though, Ross, is that when people are reading, we don't tend to read newspapers these days, but when they read headlines, you need to hook them quickly and tell them what they need to know quite quickly while you've temporarily got their attention.
But that was the same 30 years ago when I was starting.
But when she was talking, that was at a conference where the audience is locked into the room. So she has the opportunity to lead them into what she wants to talk about. And therefore that hold it back and then reveal is very powerful.
Yeah. I think you still need, I don't disagree, but I think there's still a degree of, to make sure people don't switch off.
Yeah. In business development, just thinking about business development, I'm sure we all get those cold emails. Hi, Chris. And then the opening line is something that I think, you're trying to sell to me, delete. And it's so easy for me to press the delete button, but I'm pressing the delete button 15, 20 times a day because of the nonsense that's coming through. So it's not relevant to me. It's not grabbing my attention. It's not making me think, I need to carry on reading this. So that's where the challenge comes in order to continue that conversation, to build a relationship and to see where it leads. So I feel like we're lucky to have you in the country, Andrew, because you seem to be working abroad quite often. How does that come about? How do you get these glamorous jobs in different parts of Europe?
Well, anybody that travels a lot know that travel isn't glamorous. It's particularly challenging.
To me and Chris, because we don't. So me and Chris think it's glamorous because I go to Leeds and he goes to Stockport.
The overseas stuff started with somebody who was kind of a mentor to me in a way. Well, he's become a mentor. He wasn't at the time. He was just sort of an associate. And me and my then business partner gave him a little bit of work that we didn't think we could do. And then he felt, I guess you ought to reciprocate in some way. So he said, Andrew, I've been offered this chance to speak at an event in Zurich. And it's for a very big organization. They want some stuff on storytelling. But this is really your thing, isn't it? You do storytelling, don't you? Do you fancy doing this? So I didn't have a great deal of work at the time. And I grasped the opportunity and managed to get over there and do 60 minutes to their corporate sales force. And it must have gone well because it led to 17 workshops in the USA and Europe. And then that same mentor offered me the chance to work for PwC. So I've been working with what used to be Price Waterhouse, but PwC now. I've been working with them for 7 years. And he introduced me as well to the European Parliament. I've done some work with them. So that it came about through one person, which was astonishing in a way. And because the nature of those clients, that tends to filter into other opportunities as well. And sometimes, and I know you want to focus on biz dev as well and marketing. A lot of the time, if you get in with somebody in these big companies and they move to another big company, they contact you and say, I've just moved. I like what you did with the previous company I worked for. Would you do some stuff with us now? So it actually, the same contact can lead to more, different clients.
Yeah. What a wonderful way of getting new business. It's it's all about relationships, isn't it? It's a wonderful way of getting new business from someone who's, like I say, who's worked with you in the past, whether they're in the same position or a new position. And
that client in Zurich, by the way, I happened to mention Simon Sinek's now famous Start With Why concept, the the golden circle thing, the why, the how, and the what. I obviously credited him with it in the presentation I gave because it had influenced my thinking. And then the boss came up to me at the end and said, "That was very good, Andrew. I like the thing with the circles." And I thought, bloody hell, that was the only thing that wasn't my eye.
Rest of it was shite, but that was really good.
And then he said something very funny to me. He said, "Yes, we asked Simon Sinek to give this talk, but he was too expensive."
Brilliant. Andrew Thorp, the poor man, Simon.
So I'm now the B&M bargains of the leadership development and speaking.
You're not. You're absolutely not, Andrew.
But what those clients are after, and this is where it brings it back to Manchester and the more local things that I do, is that people want to be more interesting. They want to have something to say that people listen to and react to, rather than it being a bit sort of staid and generic and forgettable. But they want to retain their professionalism. They don't want to go all weird and quirky. So there's that sort of Goldilocks area in the middle where they can humanize what they're talking about, but still maintain their status. And that's really what I help them to do. It's helping people who are technically trained. They're brilliant people. They have a lot of knowledge, but they need to learn how to package that knowledge and deliver it in a way to different audiences that's adaptable and that somehow creates connection.
Yeah. What do you think? We also want to learn from our mistakes. So what would you have changed in the past to maybe get where you are quicker? Or what mistake did you make that actually set you off in the better direction? Is there something you can pinpoint on? If I'd done that differently.
I sometimes think that I worked for 22 years in the wrong industry, and that I wish I'd started doing this earlier.
Could you have done? Do you think? Did you have the life experience and the knowledge?
No, I think probably what I did before I would have had to have done anyway. I don't know whether I'd needed 22 years of it. Maybe I could have, got enough confidence and knowledge to start a little earlier. Yeah.
But,
by the way, the bin trucks are just pulling up outside, so it's going to get quite noisy. I got rid of the dog.
Yeah, you got rid of the dog, but you're now the bin men.
But there'll always be somebody, won't there? There'll always be, yeah. And again, I'm a big fan of the magic number 3. We've talked about TLAs and 3 ways of doing things, but for me, my favourite sort of looking at the sort of three dimensions is past, present, future. And we've talked about your past, Andrew. We've talked about what you're doing at the moment. So what does the future look like for you? What does the next couple of years of Andrew Thorp's life? What do you think that could look like?
Yeah, I noticed you just said 2 years, given the fact that I'm 63 now. But hopefully, I shall continue doing this for a good number of years yet.
Sure, I'm sure you will.
The main thing I want to do this year is join a golf club.
Okay.
I still play to a good level. I play to roughly the same level I played at when I was 16, which is odd in a way, but I just think I'm a bit more able to manage my mind around the course compared to what I used to be able to do as a kid. But I haven't belonged to a golf club since I was about 20. And people I play with don't understand why, I don't play anymore. Well, I don't have a handicap. So my priority now is to get a membership of a local club and get a handicap and start seeing if I can compete again, even at this ripe old age.
I'm sure there's nothing stopping you, and I'm testament to your skills on the golf course and on the driving range. So I'm eternally grateful for you showing me how to swing a golf club.
Well, you have not cracked it yet, Chris.
No, you can say that again.
It's old, isn't it?
I've been trying for 53 years to perfect this game, and I haven't got much better.
It just never appealed to me. I've no insult to either of you, because I know people who absolutely adore it.
Yeah.
And I think as much for the social aspects and getting out of the house and all those kind of things. But I don't know. It just I don't know. It just like I've never enjoyed gin. That's just the idea of hitting the ball with a stick and walking after it.
Yeah,
it just I don't know.
It's not your
football
thing.
Or cricket or
No, fair enough. But they do say that deals still get done on a golf course, so that's certainly one of my motivations.
But my brother's very competitive, and always has been. I guess that's why he was a professional golfer. And what he can do is he can play ugly and still grind out a score when he's not playing very well. And I find no joy in that at all. So my joy in golf isn't really the social side. It's a bit about the exercise and the environment. It's mostly about the feeling of striking the ball properly.
Yeah, they talk about this, there's that hallelujah perfect clarity moment, don't they, of you've hit that ball better than you ever hit a ball before. You're at one with yourself and with the golf ball, and it's gone further and got better. Is that you're constantly chasing that high?
It's like it's like a piece of artwork that you can look at and admire and think that was really really good. That was it. That's what I was trying to create.
Yeah.
And the feeling of it's like when you hit any racket or bat and you middle it, it feels wonderful. There's no effort. It zooms off. You think it's, oh god, this is what it's at. So to my mind, my joy comes from technique and striking the ball properly.
It's almost like legalised drugs for middle class fellas, isn't it? It's, people are. I'm told it's never been my thing that people, are always chasing that high, literally. So it's a similar kind of thing, I think, with golf, and spending money that you've told the wife you haven't spent. It's very similar to drugs, really, isn't it?
But I'll tell you what it's also similar to, Ross. It's similar to the feeling when you're working with an audience of getting a reaction.
Yeah,
that's the closest analogy I can make with the golf thing that we're talking about.
Oh, again, I used to DJ when I was younger, and that moment when you put the right record on, that the crowd goes from really enjoying it to, oh my God, and you've just chosen the right moment to change the records, and you've chosen the right record. You're a godlike genius for 3.5 minutes until you cock it up with the next record. But just those few moments, and it's chasing that high always.
It is. It's a kind of a high. So that's the nearest equivalent I can think of. So my answer to your question, Chris, was I know it sounds a bit sort of fatuous to talk about golf when it's about business development and marketing, but that's one of the things I have in mind this year. And other than that, it's just simply to continue doing what I do, what I love. And I also have an online course now, which I put it online just over a year ago. And that's starting now to get into one big organization, which I'm very excited about because there are over 20,000 people in this organization. So I've started small, but it's growing.
Yeah, very good. No, that's great.
If you had to offer one tip for marketing or business development that's helped you grow your business, what would it be? How have you got yourself out there? How have you found new business?
You've got to do what Chris is very good at. You've got to build a network of people who feel a sense of alignment with what you're doing. They want to support you because you're nice and because you're helping them. And you build up that sort of body of goodwill. So you can't do it on your own.
No.
And I think also you've got to be willing to adapt, because what you think is what the marketplace wants initially is probably more what you want to give it. And then you have to read the signals and then adjust a little bit. You don't have to compromise all your principles or your beliefs, but you do have to change your message to the point where it starts to sell.
Wise words indeed.
Very good. Yeah, that's great.
That sounds like a good point to finish our little conversation. I don't know about you, Chris.
Sure. Yeah. No, I've been looking forward to hearing from Andrew. It's always a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to attending the multi-story club. There's going to be one next week, and there's throughout the year as well. So it's been a pleasure, Andrew. I'm pleased to call you a friend, and I always enjoy hearing from you.
If people want to find out more about you, Andrew, where should they go? LinkedIn or
LinkedIn? Yes, it is good. I remember not to put an E on my name. It's just THORP.
Couldn't afford the E.
Multi-story man. But I also have a website which is andrewthorp.co.uk.
Right. And if you want to find out more about me, rossbrown.co.uk.
And agentsof.co.uk.
It's all nice and simple, isn't it? Yeah. Why couldn't you be Chris Marsh? It'd work much better then. Well, thank you very much for listening. This was episode 6, I do believe. We've got some exciting people lined up over the next few weeks. We're stacking these up so we can get a load in the bank and the library and then actually get on with some paying work rather than entertaining you lot. So until the next time we meet, my name's Ross Brown. It's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.